What is up, fishing world? Trevor Wagner coming back at you again. In today's episode, I want to talk about the 6 rods that I will take on my kayak with me for the month of March. So I'm going to go through my rods, the techniques that I'm using when I'm fishing in March. Now, I typically fish in the Texas Panhandle region. In my region, it is still wintertime. Our water temps are still pretty cold. Last I checked, the lake that I'm going to go fishing at the first week of March, it was sitting at about 43 degrees. We have a little warm up this week, so hopefully it gets up to about 45. But it is a pretty deep lake, so it takes a little while for that lake to heat up and get to the right temperature for the spawn to happen. For us, that typically happens in the spring. We're talking usually late April time period when we'll actually have the spawning going on here. So we are truly in the pre-spawn era. Still got some cooler water temps, so that really plays a factor into the rods and reels that I choose to get on the yak when I go out there. So let's just jump right in and talk about the 6 rods and reels and the techniques that I will use in the month of March. All right, number 1 is one in my, if you watched my last video, the one that just came out, you would have seen this. This is my spinnerbait rod. So as you can see, we are still winter time. We're in that time period. I do have a little red kicker blade on here. It works. I like it. Again, white and chartreuse usually works really good for me. All right, so this is the Dobyns Fury 734C. Just a great rod for spinnerbaits, great rod for underspins. That's typically what I use this for. I have this paired with the Corrado 200. This rod and reel is typically on my yak year-round because I'll switch the spinnerbait out if it's not working to an underspin. And I just love this rod, love this reel. But this is definitely a staple in March. Love it. All right, next up. Had to reach behind me. All right, next up, this is my square bill rod. So this is my rod that I use for my square bills, some of my crankbaits that are more the mid divers or deep divers if they're smaller crankbaits. I absolutely love this rod. Again, this is another Dobyns rod. This is a Dobyns Champion Series. This is the DC 705 CB. This is the Fred Robanus Boom Boom stick, hence why it's green. Has nice, if you could read it, square bill on the side. And this, I have this paired up with a Lew's Tournament MP. I like this reel. It fits so nice in hand, and it's an affordable reel. It's a great rod. I got it at a great discounted price when they are clearancing them out. Absolutely wonderful rod and reel for my square bill fishing and crankbait fishing. And if you've never fished in cooler water, crankbaits usually do really, really well for me around this area. So we'll have this guy with me the whole month of March. All right, so I mentioned the cooler temperatures, and that's where these next 2 really come into play. Because, you know, spinnerbaits and crankbaits, they work year-round, no matter where you're at. They typically work all the time. The next 2, people have always said these are the cold water techniques that you use, but I found that these work year-round as well. Forward-facing sonars really showed that, especially with the next one I'm going to show you, works well year-round. And if you ever watch the Bass Elite series, Justin Hamner throws this thing year-round. If you know anything about Justin Hamner, then you know about the next rod and reel and technique that I'm about to show you. And that is the good old jerk bait. Right now I have, this is a Mega Bass Vision 110 Junior. I have that tied on there, a little bit smaller jerk bait. I love jerk bait fishing. Just something I really like to do. All right, I have this rod is a St. Croix Victory Series. This is the VTC. It's a 6 foot, 6'8". I'm sorry, I was like, my eyes are going bad, can't read. 6'8", medium power, extra fast action. You're like, extra fast? But the thing about this is called the jerk rod, and it has an extra fast tip, but it actually has a really good parabolic bend to it as well. And this rod it keeps them pinned. I don't know what it is, it just works really, really well. Now I have this with the Daiwa Tatula SVTW with the tri-wing, 8-to-1 gear ratio. And let me tell you, this is one of those reels that I just fell in love with this past year. Absolutely love this reel. I love this rod. March, cold weather, definitely jerkbait fishing. Really hoping that March really produces some really good jerkbait bites, because I like jerkbait fishing. So jerkbait rod, definitely a March staple. All right, next up is another one of those cold weather ones. I know people that use this year round as well, and I've talked about this in another video. I'm not going to pull it out of its case, but inside this case right here is my A-rig. So again, cold weather, water temperature cold, mimics a lot of schooling bass, just absolutely slays in those colder water temperatures. I usually will put the A-rig away as we get into later spring, going into the summer, because this rod goes away and my top water rods come out. So in the month of March, I'm throwing the A-rig around. It works, it catches the bass, catches a lot of white bass as well. And this is a Lew's Laser SG1 speed stick. It is a 7'4", rated for lures and stuff up to 2 ounces. It's a heavy, mod fast, absolutely great rod. And I have this paired with a Daiwa Tatula. This is a 200 series, 7:3 gear ratio. Absolutely wonderful rod and reel combo for throwing the A-rigs. And I usually take my bigger swim baits out with it too, and I could switch out my swim baits with the A-rig in this to see if I could get any followers, and then follow them up with a couple of the other techniques to get them in the boat. But A-rig, definitely a March staple for me in the Texas Panhandle. All right, so now those were more of my faster moving baits. Sometimes you just gotta slow it down. And when I slow it down, that means I'm going to usually a Texas rig. I'll throw a shaky head on here every once in a while, but in March, I'm usually sticking to the Texas rig. I don't know if you can see the colors, but this is the Crush City Bronco Bug. It has got that red. It's got the black and red flake on the backside. It's kind of a green pumpkin, so it's kind of got a dual purpose. I love that thing. It actually works really, really well. Now, for those of you that don't like Guggen or hate Guggen, I do own one Guggen rod, and this is the Guggen Squad Go-To Gold Series rod. It has worked really, really well for me for bottom contact, for Texas rigs, and such. And it just works. I like it. This will probably be one of those rods in the future that I do upgrade. I would do want more of a sensitive rod. This is sensitive, but I think if I continue on doing more bottom contact, jig fishing, going places like that, I think this is going to be the next rod that I upgrade. Will be my bottom contact rod. This again is on a Lew's Tournament MP. If you could tell, that's the second one you've seen of that. It's a really good quality reel, really good price. This thing does fit really, really well in hand. I can't really knock the rod. The only thing I don't like about this rod is this hook keeper in the back. I don't like it right there. It just doesn't work. On that, it's a great rod. And in March, can't go wrong with the Texas rig, especially some kind of craw color in red. Typically works really, really well for us in this area. So again, technique number 5, rod and reel, you got to go with the Texas rig. All right, and that brings us to the last one. And this is the one that's usually most controversial because it's normally used with forward-facing sonar. And yes, I do run that cheater box on my system. And for me, just catches fish. And it's a good follow-up bait If I have a missed strike, I could usually throw it out and help it out. But as you can see, it is the minnow shaker. That's right, the minnow shaker. So again, you don't need forward-facing sonar to throw these. It does help, but it's not required. If you're out there, you can throw these around and you can catch bass with this little guy, even without forward-facing sonar. So for me, again, I'm throwing the little minnow around using my forward-facing sonar to help out. And I have this. This is again a Dobbins Sierra series, and this is a 6 foot. This is a 692, which means it's a 6'9", a 2-power, and it is absolutely awesome. And I have that paired with my favorite spinning reel of all time, which is a Shimano Nasky, and this is in the 3000 series. Absolutely wonderful rod and reel. I can quickly change this out if I want to. I could switch that to a wacky worm. Works perfect. So this is kind of a dual purpose one. Really helps out with, again, the jig head minnows, or I can throw wacky worm on there and I can catch the bass either way with them. Always a staple on my boat. But in March, sometimes those bass are a little bit more finicky, and I could throw something like this in front of their face and just sit there and like get it close to their nose and just almost force them to eat it, if I could find them. Or I watch them turn away and run from it. So either way it works. But again, this is rod number 6. So that's my rod and reel lineup for March. So just to quickly recap the 6 rods and reels that I bring. I'm going to be bringing my spinnerbait rod. It's rod number 1. I'm going to be bringing my square bill rod with me as well, which could also double down into my crankbait rod if I need to go a little bit deeper. I have my jerkbait rod, my A-rig rod, my Texas rig jig rod, and then finally my minnow rod or wacky worm rod. But that's it. That's my March lineup that I take out with me. All right, guys, down below, tell me, do you like my lineup? Should I change something in my lineup? What is your lineup? Let me know down below in the comments. Let's keep this conversation going, because I know in different parts of the country, in March, it can vary greatly. So let me know where you're from and what you would be throwing in the month of March. Thank you guys for watching. And if you can, get out and catch some bass. All right, guys, until next time.